The fate of Qui Gon Jinn, the Jedi Master, who defied the dogma of the Jedi Order and paid the ultimate price for his beliefs, has remained one of the greatest mysteries within the Star Wars universe. Qui Gon, a man of profound wisdom and unique spiritual insight, saw beyond the traditional teachings of the Jedi. His belief in the living force guided his decisions, leading him to challenge the status quo and in turn bring about his own death at the hands of Darth Maul. But was that the end of Qui-Gon's journey, or did his untimely death mark the beginning of a deeper mystery, one that transcended death itself? Qui-Gon's death in The Phantom Menace left a gaping hole in the galaxy, one that could never be filled. His passing was not just a tragic loss to the Jedi Order, but a symbolic moment in the galaxy's larger struggle between light and dark. Yet, what remained hidden from many was the unspoken connection that Qui-Gon Jinn had with the metaphysical forces that bind the Force together. His life, death, and the questions surrounding his fate hold the key to understanding the intricate mysteries of the Star Wars universe. Could Qui-Gon have known something that others did not? Did his belief in the living force, which emphasized the importance of being in tune with the present moment, open him to realms beyond physical death? The more one delves into the mystery of Qui-Gon Jinn, the more the story begins to unravel, revealing connections to the Force that extend beyond the mortal realm. In the wake of Qui-Gon's passing, it seemed that his journey had ended, yet his legacy lingered in ways that few could fully comprehend. His teachings to Obi-Wan Kenobi, his mentorship, and his understanding of the Force had left an indelible mark on the galaxy. However, what many did not know was that Qui-Gon's death was not the end of his influence. Through the Force, Qui-Gon had learned the ancient secret that would allow him to transcend death itself, an ability that even the Jedi Council had long dismissed as myth. This concept, known as Force ghosts, was first brought to light by Qui-Gon Jinn, who sought to understand the deeper mysteries of the Force. What if the manner of his death and the unique bond he had with the Force allowed him to break through the barriers between the physical world and the afterlife? Qui-Gon's ability to exist beyond death could offer a crucial insight into the true nature of the Force and the fate of all Jedi who followed in his footsteps. As the story unfolded, Qui-Gon's connection to the Force became clearer. Through Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon's teachings had reverberated across generations, subtly influencing the galaxy's destiny. His ghostly presence was felt during key moments, most notably in Revenge of the Sith, when Obi-Wan Kenobi, in his darkest hour, hears Qui-Gon's voice, an indication that the Jedi Master had managed to remain part of the Force in a way that no one had fully understood before. Could Qui-Gon's ghost be the manifestation of a deeper understanding of the Force? Was he more than just a mere remnant of his former self? The questions about Qui-Gon's existence beyond death raised profound philosophical and spiritual implications for the Jedi Order, and for the Force itself. For while the concept of Force ghosts was known to the Jedi, it was Qui-Gon who had begun the path toward truly understanding this phenomenon. His fate after death remained a mystery, not just because of what was known about his survival, but because of the layers of hidden truths he had left behind. In this investigation into Qui-Gon Jinn's fate, it's essential to consider the wider implications of his unique place within the Force. The mystery of Qui-Gon lies not just in his survival, but in the very way he was able to achieve a form of immortality, something the Jedi had not thought possible. To understand this, one must explore Qui-Gon's unorthodox relationship with the Force. While most Jedi adhere to a strict code that places a heavy emphasis on control and discipline, Qui Gon was deeply attuned to the chaotic, ever-changing nature of the living force. His personal philosophy diverged from the traditional Jedi teachings in one crucial way. He believed in the importance of living in the present moment, embracing the chaos of life as part of the larger cosmic balance. This belief led him to a deeper understanding of the Force's true nature. Unlike other Jedi, who sought to control their emotions, Qui Gon understood that emotions were part of the Force's flow. Through this understanding, he was able to connect with the Force in ways that others could not. When Qui Gon died at the hands of Darth Maul, it was not just the physical death of a Jedi Master, it was the end of an era. Yet, as the years went on, Qui Gon's presence persisted. His teachings guided Obi-Wan through the difficult trials he faced, and in turn, Obi-Wan passed them down to Anakin Skywalker. Through these connections, Qui Gon's spirit lived on in the galaxy. But the real question remained, was Qui Gon truly gone, or was he lingering in some form, waiting for the right moment to reveal his true destiny after death? The discovery that Qui Gon Jinn's essence was still present after his physical death raises important questions about the nature of the Force and the afterlife within the Star Wars universe. If a Jedi can transcend death in this way, does it mean that their consciousness can continue to influence the galaxy even after they have passed on? And if Qui Gon had unlocked the secret to surviving beyond death, what did that mean for the Jedi and their beliefs about immortality? Was this the key to a greater understanding of the Force that had been lost over time? And could Qui Gon's fate ultimately serve as a stepping stone for the redemption of Anakin Skywalker and the destruction of the Sith? The lingering mystery surrounding Qui Gon Jinn's fate offers a unique lens through which to examine the nature of life, death, and the Force. Through Qui Gon's death and his connection to the living Force, the galaxy would ultimately come to understand that death is not the end, but rather a transformation, one that even the most dedicated Jedi had not fully grasped. As the story of the Jedi continued to unfold, it was clear that Qui Gon Jinn's journey was far from over. The true mystery of his fate lay not in the way he died, but in the way his spirit lived on, influencing the galaxy in subtle and powerful ways. As the saga of Qui Gon Jinn's journey unfolded, the mystery of his fate after death grew deeper, evolving into a story of cosmic resonance that transcended time and space. Qui Gon's fate after death became a point of speculation, yet the deeper implications of his mysterious continuation revealed far more than anyone could have anticipated. What was Qui Gon's true destiny, and how had he, a Jedi, managed to survive beyond death in ways no one else had before him? Was this mastery over death a consequence of his profound connection to the Force, or was it the result of a hidden power he unlocked by defying conventional Jedi teachings? Qui Gon Jinn had always believed in the importance of living in the moment, a concept that set him apart from his fellow Jedi. His understanding of the Force was unique in that he embraced its chaos, its unpredictability, and its profound depth. His teachings, unlike the dogmatic practices of the Jedi Council, encouraged an openness to the unexpected. This approach allowed him to perceive a reality that others could not, a reality that included a greater connection to the very essence of the Force itself. It was this connection that allowed Qui Gon to do something that had long been considered impossible for a Jedi, to retain his consciousness and presence after death. When Qui Gon died, it seemed as though his physical existence had been extinguished by Darth Maul's fatal strike. However, the way Qui Gon's death unfolded suggested that there was something more to the Jedi Master's fate. As he lay dying, he whispered to Obi-Wan Kenobi, his final words serving as a poignant reminder of his belief in the living Force. It was in these final moments that Qui Gon's unique bond with the Force was solidified. He died not with a sense of fear or resignation, but with an understanding that the Force would guide him to whatever lay beyond. This act of surrender to the Force, the belief that death was not an end, but a continuation, was the key to Qui Gon's eventual transcendence. The Jedi Order, with its long-standing traditions, had long considered the notion of a Jedi surviving death as nothing more than a myth. The idea of retaining one's consciousness after death seemed contrary to their understanding of the Force. And yet, Qui Gon, through his unyielding belief in the living Force, managed to bridge the gap between the physical realm and the afterlife. His death was not the termination of his journey, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, one where his presence in the galaxy continued, albeit in a form that was both subtle and powerful. The idea of Force ghosts was not new, yet Qui Gon Jinn's experience brought a deeper understanding to this phenomenon. The Jedi Council had, for centuries, been aware of the concept of Force spirits, the ability for powerful Force users to imprint their consciousness onto the Force after death. However, the ability to consciously exist beyond death was considered to be a rare and nearly unattainable feat. Mastering the art of existing beyond the physical plane required a level of understanding that went beyond even the deepest teachings of the Jedi. Qui Gon's unique connection to the Force, combined with his acceptance of the natural flow of life and death, allowed him to achieve this transcendence. Despite this achievement, Qui Gon's fate after death remained enigmatic. He did not simply manifest as a typical Force ghost like those of Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda, who appeared as visible manifestations of light, offering guidance or insight to the living. Instead, Qui Gon's presence in the Force was much more elusive, subtle, and layered. His influence, while undeniable, did not immediately reveal itself in overt forms, but rather in the quiet moments where his teachings and guidance permeated the lives of others. For Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui Gon's presence was felt in the most critical moments of his journey, even though Qui Gon himself was not physically present. The first tangible sign of Qui Gon's transcendence came when Obi-Wan Kenobi, during the Clone Wars, began to hear his former master's voice. It was a fleeting moment, a whisper in the darkness that guided Obi-Wan when he was struggling with his own doubts. Qui Gon's voice, ever calm and filled with wisdom, reminded Obi-Wan of the principles they both held dear, that the living Force was the key to understanding the galaxy, and that one must trust in its guidance, even when faced with uncertainty. In these moments, Obi-Wan began to understand that Qui Gon's journey had not ended with his death, but had merely evolved into something new, an eternal connection to the Force, one that would continue to influence the galaxy and its events. It was in these subtle moments that the true mystery of Qui Gon's existence after death began to unfold. While other Jedi sought to control their connection to the Force, Qui Gon had allowed himself to be a conduit for the Force's will. His belief that the Force should be embraced as a living, breathing entity rather than an object to be controlled was a perspective that few Jedi had fully understood. It was this openness, this willingness to be guided by the Force in all its unpredictability, that had allowed Qui Gon to transcend the limitations that other Jedi had placed on themselves. His ability to remain part of the Force was not the result of his personal power, but rather the result of his deep spiritual connection to the living Force, a connection that allowed him to understand and accept the mysteries of life, death, and everything in between. The true implications of Qui Gon's survival after death were not fully realized until the rise of Anakin Skywalker, whose connection to the Force was unlike anything seen before. Qui Gon had always believed that Anakin was the chosen one, the one who would bring balance to the Force. However, the dark side of the Force, embodied by Darth Sidious and the Sith, sought to corrupt Anakin's destiny. Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin's potential was unwavering, and even after his death, he continued to influence the events surrounding Anakin's rise and fall. His role in Anakin's destiny was not one of direct intervention, but rather one of subtle guidance. A gentle nudge in the right direction, a voice that urged Anakin to follow the light, even when the darkness seemed overwhelming. Qui-Gon's presence in the Force was not limited to his relationship with Obi-Wan and Anakin. It was also felt in the larger cosmic struggle between the light and dark sides of the Force. As the Sith began to rise in power, it became apparent that Qui-Gon's unique understanding of the Force had given him the ability to influence events long after his physical death. His teachings, though often dismissed by the Jedi Council during his lifetime, had planted the seeds for a deeper understanding of the Force that would be crucial in the fight against the Sith. The mystery of Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death continues to reverberate through the galaxy, shaping the destiny of those who came after him. His legacy, though quiet and often unseen, played a critical role in the ultimate triumph of the light over the dark. Qui-Gon's teachings to Obi-Wan and Anakin, and his subtle influence on the events that followed, remind us that death is not an end, but a transition, one that, for those attuned to the Force, offers the possibility of transcendence and eternal connection. In the end, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death was not merely about the survival of his consciousness, but about the continuing power of his teachings. His understanding of the living Force, his rejection of dogma, and his acceptance of the unpredictable nature of life allowed him to become more than just a memory. Qui-Gon transcended the physical world and became part of the very essence of the Force, guiding those who came after him with a wisdom that only the truly enlightened could understand. The mystery of Qui Gon Jinn's fate is a reminder that even in death, one's connection to the Force remains unbroken, and that the lessons learned in life can continue to shape the galaxy for generations to come. The legacy of Qui Gon Jinn is woven into the very fabric of the galaxy. While his death at the hands of Darth Maul marked the end of his physical existence, it did not signal the cessation of his influence on the events that followed. Qui-Gon's departure left behind a trail of unanswered questions, particularly about the unique connection he maintained with the Force. His posthumous existence in the Force was not only a philosophical revelation but a tangible force that subtly influenced the fates of those around him, especially Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. This connection transcended time and space, defying the conventional Jedi understanding of life after death and revealing deeper mysteries about the nature of the Force. Qui-Gon's teachings had always stood apart from those of his fellow Jedi. He was a proponent of the living Force, which emphasized living in the present and attuning oneself to the immediate moment rather than focusing solely on distant future outcomes. This philosophy allowed him to see connections and truths that were invisible to most other Jedi. Qui-Gon's unique relationship with the Force enabled him to perceive a destiny that others could not, a destiny that linked him not only to the present, but to the future as well. This perspective became pivotal in understanding the role Qui-Gon played after his death. While the Jedi Order had long believed that death was an irreversible end to one's connection with the Force, Qui-Gon's spiritual journey proved otherwise. His unorthodox views on the Force, particularly his faith in its living nature, allowed him to achieve an unprecedented level of understanding, one that led to his survival beyond the mortal plane. Upon his death, Qui Gon did not simply become a Force ghost, appearing in physical form to guide the living. Instead, his essence became integrated into the very heart of the Force, existing as a guiding presence that could influence the galaxy in subtle and profound ways. The first tangible manifestation of Qui Gon's continued influence occurred shortly after his death, when Obi-Wan Kenobi began to hear his former master's voice during moments of great stress and indecision. This phenomenon was something that had not been fully understood by the Jedi Order, and even Obi-Wan himself struggled to comprehend its significance. Qui-Gon's voice, though faint, provided Obi-Wan with crucial guidance at pivotal moments. These whispers were not merely the residual echoes of a former Jedi Master. They were an active, conscious part of the Force that continued to shape events in the galaxy. What set Qui-Gon's posthumous existence apart from other Force ghosts was the subtlety with which he operated. While the more conventional Force ghosts, like those of Obi-Wan and Yoda, had the ability to manifest physically and offer direct counsel, Qui-Gon's presence was different. He did not appear in moments of triumph or desperation, but instead his voice resonated during moments of personal reflection and spiritual growth. It was as though Qui-Gon's essence had become an unseen hand that gently nudged those in the galaxy who were open to the Force toward their true destinies. In Obi-Wan's case, Qui-Gon's continued influence became most apparent as Obi-Wan navigated the increasingly complex situation surrounding Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan, as the mentor to Anakin, had witnessed the rise of the Chosen One, but also his inevitable fall to the dark side. The burden of Anakin's potential and his eventual corruption weighed heavily on Obi-Wan's heart. It was during these dark times that Qui-Gon's voice reached Obi-Wan most strongly, offering not just guidance, but reassurance that the path forward, while difficult, was the only way to achieve the ultimate balance. Obi-Wan's internal conflict mirrored the larger conflict within the galaxy. He was torn between his love and loyalty to Anakin, and his duty to uphold the Jedi Order and the will of the Force. This struggle was something Qui-Gon understood better than anyone. It was no accident that Qui-Gon's voice reached Obi-Wan at these critical moments, when he was at the crossroads of faith, duty, and love. Qui-Gon, in a sense, became the voice of reason that spoke through the tumultuous forces of the galaxy's darkest hour. The influence of Qui-Gon did not stop with Obi-Wan, though. His legacy extended to Anakin Skywalker, the pivotal figure whose fate was intricately bound to the destiny of the galaxy. Qui-Gon had believed in Anakin's potential to bring balance to the Force, a belief that ultimately became the cornerstone of the Jedi Order's understanding of Anakin's significance. However, this belief was tested as Anakin's descent into darkness seemed inevitable. The relationship between Qui-Gon's teachings and Anakin's fate became more apparent during the moments when Anakin's inner conflict threatened to consume him. What Qui-Gon had understood, long before the Jedi Council or anyone else, was that Anakin was not a simple pawn in the larger battle between light and dark. Anakin was the key to both, the fulcrum upon which the balance of the galaxy would tip. While the Jedi believed in the traditional path of balance, Qui-Gon recognized that true balance could only be achieved by accepting the inherent chaos and unpredictability of the Force. He had seen this truth in Anakin long before anyone else, and he continued to believe that Anakin could find his way, even if that journey involved great suffering. Qui-Gon's faith in Anakin never wavered, and in the moments of greatest trial, when Anakin was at the edge of his ultimate fall to the dark side, Qui-Gon's voice served as a beacon of hope. Qui-Gon's subtle guidance was not intended to intervene directly in Anakin's decisions, but rather to ensure that the Chosen One remained aligned with the larger destiny of the Force. Qui-Gon's influence in these moments was not just a reminder of the possibility of redemption, but a reinforcement of the idea that Anakin, despite all of his flaws and mistakes, was still the one destined to bring balance to the Force. Qui-Gon's fate, after death, thus becomes intertwined with the larger narrative of the galaxy itself. His understanding of the Force's deeper mysteries made him uniquely equipped to influence the events of the galaxy long after his physical death. His survival within the Force was not just an accident. It was the natural consequence of his spiritual wisdom and his deep connection to the living energy that flowed through all things. Qui-Gon's role in shaping the events that would eventually lead to the rise of the rebellion, the fall of the Sith, and the return of balance to the Force was not a matter of coincidence, but a manifestation of his deeper understanding of the Force's intricate web. The true mystery of Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death is not just about his survival beyond the mortal realm, but about the way in which he influenced the larger balance of the galaxy. His death was not an end, but a transition, a passage into a greater role that extended beyond the traditional boundaries of life and death. Qui-Gon became something more than a Jedi Master. He became an eternal part of the Force itself, guiding the destiny of the galaxy and ensuring that the balance of the Force would ultimately be restored. In the final analysis, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death is a testament to the power of faith, wisdom, and connection to the living energy that binds all things. His understanding of the Force transcended the limitations of the physical realm, allowing him to continue his influence across generations. His legacy is not just one of wisdom, but one of spiritual endurance, reminding us that true balance in the Force can only be achieved by accepting the unknown, the unpredictable, and the ever-changing nature of the universe. As the story of Qui Gon Jinn's journey unfolded through the years, his presence in the Force became a symbol of transformation, guiding others not just with wisdom but with the very essence of his being. His influence, though unseen and subtle, was undeniably powerful. For Qui Gon Jinn, death was not the cessation of life, but a transition, a continuation of his eternal connection with the Force, a force that transcended physical existence and could shape the destinies of those around him. His legacy became more than just teachings. It was the blueprint for a deeper understanding of the Force and its role in the galactic struggle. In this part of the mystery, Qui-Gon's fate after death reveals its connection to Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, and the ultimate role Qui-Gon played in the restoration of balance to the Force. The concept of balance within the Force was one that Qui Gon Jinn never ceased to believe in. While many in the Jedi Order saw Anakin as a threat or a mere tool of prophecy, Qui Gon saw him as the catalyst for a cosmic rebirth. He understood the deeper nature of the Force, recognizing that the balance could only be restored by confronting the darkness in its entirety, not through suppression, but through acceptance and transformation. This profound understanding led Qui-Gon to a path that in life was in stark contrast to the teachings of the Jedi Council. While the Jedi believed in maintaining balance by adhering to rules and traditions, Qui-Gon sought balance by embracing the chaotic flow of the living Force, trusting in its guidance even when the future appeared uncertain. This approach was not merely a philosophical stance. It was a spiritual awakening that transcended the realm of the living, allowing Qui-Gon to leave a legacy that would continue even after his death. The fate of Qui Gon Jinn after death was thus intricately tied to Anakin Skywalker. Qui-Gon's belief that Anakin was the chosen one who would bring balance to the Force was central to his understanding of the galaxy's future. Anakin was a figure of immense potential and peril, whose path was bound to the light and dark in equal measure. To the Jedi, Anakin was a walking contradiction, a being who was born from the Force itself, yet whose very existence threatened the peace they had fought so hard to maintain. But to Qui Gon, Anakin was more than just a pawn in the larger war between the light and dark sides. He was the fulcrum upon which the balance of the galaxy would turn, and Qui Gon believed that his death was not a departure from this destiny, but a continuation of it. Upon Qui Gon's death, his connection to Anakin deepened in ways that few could understand. The key to Qui Gon's influence after death was his unwavering faith in the Force and his belief that the universe was shaped by the actions of individuals who were in tune with its flow. He had never adhered to the rigid doctrines of the Jedi Order, and this independence of thought allowed him to understand the mysteries of the Force in ways that others could not. Qui Gon had seen the darkness within Anakin, but he also saw the light, the potential for great good. His death was not a tragic loss, but a part of the larger pattern that would ultimately bring balance to the Force. In the years following Qui Gon's death, Anakin's journey became increasingly entwined with his master's influence. Though Qui Gon was no longer physically present, his teachings resonated through the actions of Obi-Wan Kenobi and the choices Anakin himself made. Anakin's fall to the dark side was, in part, a result of his fear of loss, fear of losing Padme, fear of losing his power, and perhaps most critically, fear of the unknown. But Qui-Gon's presence in the Force, though invisible, continued to guide Anakin in subtle ways. It was through these unseen whispers, these moments of spiritual clarity, that Anakin was ultimately able to fulfill his destiny, albeit in a tragic and unexpected way. The pivotal moment of Anakin's redemption, his return to the light after his fall to the dark side, was not solely the result of Luke Skywalker's faith in his father. It was also the culmination of Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin's potential. Qui-Gon's voice, though quiet, was heard in the darkest moments of Anakin's life. It was a voice that urged him to remember the deeper truths of the Force, to understand that the path to redemption lay not in denying the darkness, but in confronting it. This guidance from Qui-Gon, combined with the love and hope that Luke brought to the situation, was the key to Anakin's return to the light. Qui-Gon's involvement in Anakin's redemption was not as a direct force for change, but as an indirect guide through the Force itself. His belief in the power of personal choice, in the potential for change within the individual, allowed him to leave behind an imprint on the Force that could influence the course of events long after his death. This was not a matter of intervention. It was a matter of spiritual continuity. Qui-Gon had laid the foundation for Anakin's redemption, and that foundation was built on the understanding that the Force was not a tool to be wielded for control, but a living entity to be respected and understood. The role of Qui Gon Jinn's essence within the Force also became clearer after Anakin's death and the fall of the Empire. As the galaxy began to rebuild, Qui-Gon's teachings continued to resonate through the generations. His influence was not just a matter of his presence in the Force, but of the profound philosophical shift he had initiated within the Jedi Order. Qui-Gon had always been a maverick, a Jedi who was not afraid to challenge the established norms. His death marked the end of an era for the Jedi, but his teachings lived on, subtly shaping the future of the Jedi Order. His message of balance, of accepting the unpredictability of life and death, laid the groundwork for a new understanding of the Force, one that would in time allow for the restoration of peace and justice throughout the galaxy. In the aftermath of the Galactic Civil War, as the Jedi began to rebuild, Qui-Gon's legacy played a crucial role in the new direction the Order would take. The Jedi who survived, particularly those like Obi-Wan and Yoda, who had experienced Qui-Gon's teachings firsthand, understood the importance of embracing the living force and allowing for the unpredictability of life. They recognized that the Jedi Order could not return to the rigid doctrinaire teachings that had failed them in the past. Instead, they would have to learn from Qui-Gon's example, learning to be more attuned to the present moment, to embrace the Force's flow, and to allow for the inherent chaos of the universe. In this way, Qui-Gon's death was not the end of his story, but the beginning of a new era for the Jedi, a return to the core principles of the Force that he had always championed. As the galaxy entered into a new era of peace, the influence of Qui Gon Jinn continued to shape the destiny of the Jedi, the Sith, and the Force itself. His legacy was not just a matter of philosophical thought. It was a living, breathing force that continued to guide the future of the galaxy. His ability to transcend death, to continue shaping events long after his physical body had passed, was a testament to his deep understanding of the Force and its mysteries. And in the end, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death became a symbol of the eternal nature of the Force, one that transcends life and death, guiding the galaxy to a future shaped by balance, wisdom, and hope. Qui Gon Jinn's influence on the galaxy after his death is one of the most intriguing and enigmatic aspects of his character. While the physical universe moved on, Qui Gon's spiritual journey, one that had defied the expectations of his time, continued to unfold in ways that few could have anticipated. His death, though tragic, was far from the end of his story. Instead, it marked the beginning of a deeper mystery that had yet to be fully understood by the Jedi, the Sith, or any other Force-sensitive beings in the galaxy. What lay beyond death for Qui Gon? How had his unique connection to the living Force allowed him to transcend death in a manner that no other Jedi had done before him? The idea of life after death was not a new one in the Star Wars universe. Jedi had long understood that the Force, in its infinite wisdom, allowed for the continuation of consciousness after physical death. However, the ability to manifest as a Force ghost was considered rare, and only the most powerful Jedi, such as Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin, were believed to have mastered this ability. But Qui-Gon's transcendence was different from the typical manifestation of Force spirits. While other Jedi had learned to become ethereal, visible to the living as spirits of light, Qui-Gon's essence took on a far more subtle form. His existence beyond death did not manifest in the same way as that of Obi-Wan or Yoda. Rather, Qui-Gon's influence was more subtle, more entwined with the Force itself, as if he had become one with it in a way that transcended the conventional understanding of Force ghosts. One of the most important aspects of Qui-Gon's fate after death was his belief in the living Force. Unlike many Jedi who adhered strictly to the more passive aspects of the Force, focusing on its light and dark sides, Qui-Gon embraced the immediacy of the Force, its ability to guide and shape the present moment. He had always believed that the Force was more than a set of rules to be followed. It was a living, breathing energy that could be felt, embraced, and understood in ways that went beyond the teachings of the Jedi Order. It was this connection to the living Force, his openness to its chaotic and unpredictable nature, that allowed Qui-Gon to survive death in a way that was completely unique. When Qui-Gon died, it was as though his deep connection to the Force allowed him to slip through the veil between life and death. In his final moments, Qui-Gon had accepted that his time in the physical realm was over. But unlike other Jedi, who would have simply faded into the Force, Qui Gon's understanding of the Force allowed him to do something extraordinary. He did not just become one with the Force, he continued to guide and influence the galaxy through it. His essence, while not physically manifest, became a living part of the Force itself. It was as though Qui Gon had unlocked a deeper layer of existence within the Force, one that allowed him to continue his journey in a way that was incomprehensible to others. Qui Gon's continued presence was first felt by Obi-Wan Kenobi, whose connection to his former master was profound. In the dark days following Qui Gon's death, Obi-Wan found himself struggling with the weight of the responsibilities thrust upon him, particularly with the rise of Anakin Skywalker. It was during these moments of intense conflict, when Obi-Wan was at his lowest, that Qui Gon's voice began to reach him. Unlike the Force ghosts of other Jedi, Qui Gon did not appear as a figure of light or energy. His presence was more akin to a whisper, a voice in Obi-Wan's mind, a quiet reminder of the truth that had always guided him. Qui Gon's guidance was not forceful, it was gentle, like a breeze that pushes the leaves along their path without exerting any direct control. Through these quiet moments, Obi-Wan began to understand that his former master had not left him, but had instead become one with the Force in a way that allowed him to continue guiding his destiny. Qui Gon's influence was not limited to Obi-Wan. As the galaxy plunged into war, Anakin Skywalker found himself caught between the forces of light and dark, struggling to reconcile his destiny as the chosen one with the overwhelming temptations of the dark side. In these moments of personal turmoil, Qui Gon's voice reached Anakin as well. Anakin, though consumed by his fear of loss and his desire for power, was still connected to the wisdom that Qui Gon had instilled in him. Qui Gon had always believed that Anakin could find his way back from the dark side, and this belief was not based on wishful thinking or blind faith. It was based on a profound understanding of the nature of the Force. Qui Gon understood that the darkness was not a force to be defeated, but one to be transformed. And it was through this understanding that Qui Gon was able to influence Anakin even after his death. It was in the final moments of Anakin Skywalker's life that Qui Gon's influence truly became apparent. When Anakin, now Darth Vader, faced the Emperor on the second Death Star, it was not just his son Luke Skywalker who called out to him. It was Qui Gon's teachings, deeply embedded in the Force, that reminded Anakin of the man he had once been, the man who had believed in the greater good, who had once fought for peace and balance. In this pivotal moment, Qui Gon's essence was felt most strongly. His presence, though not physically visible, was more tangible than ever before. It was Qui Gon who reminded Anakin of his true self, of the balance he was meant to restore. And in that moment of clarity, Anakin was able to choose the light, to finally destroy the Emperor and fulfill his destiny as the chosen one. Qui Gon's fate after death was not a story of passive existence. Rather, it was one of active participation in the ongoing struggle of the galaxy. His ability to influence events from beyond the veil, to guide those who needed his wisdom, and to gently nudge the galaxy toward balance, was the true power of his legacy. Qui Gon's understanding of the Force allowed him to transcend the limitations of death, and in doing so, he became a permanent part of the galaxy's spiritual fabric. His influence continued long after the events of the Galactic Civil War, shaping the Jedi Order's new understanding of the Force and providing the foundation for the teachings of future generations. In the end, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death was not a simple story of survival or afterlife. It was a tale of spiritual transcendence, a testament to the power of the Force and the eternal nature of consciousness. Qui Gon's legacy was not confined to the time of his death, nor was it bound by the limitations of the physical realm. Through his unique connection to the living force, Qui Gon Jinn was able to continue his journey beyond death, becoming a guiding presence for those who were open to the Force's wisdom. And in doing so, Qui Gon proved that death is not the end, but a transition, a step in an ongoing journey that transcends time and space, and one that continues to influence the galaxy long after one's physical form has passed. Qui Gon Jinn's role within the Force became more than just a matter of spiritual survival after his death. It was a journey of enlightenment, one that transcended time and connected him with the very pulse of the galaxy. His fate after death was not defined by the absence of his physical form, but by his presence in the Force. A force that continues to shape the galaxy even in the most distant corners. The profound mystery of Qui-Gon's existence after death centers on his understanding of the Force as a living, breathing entity that cannot be merely controlled, but must be embraced in its fullest, most dynamic form. This understanding, once dismissed as a spiritual ideology, became the foundation for the ultimate transformation not only of Qui-Gon himself, but also of the galaxy's perception of the Force. His fate after death is in essence the story of the Force itself, an entity that lives, evolves, and guides all beings across time, regardless of life or death. The unique nature of Qui Gon Jinn's relationship with the Force allowed him to accomplish what no other Jedi had done before. He became an integral part of the Force's eternal flow, shaping the future through his transcendence. Unlike other Jedi, who were content to simply exist as Force spirits, Qui-Gon's presence in the Force was not static. It was active, fluid, and connected to the living universe in ways that the Jedi Order had never fully realized. His transcendence was not an escape from the physical world, but a deeper immersion into the fundamental energies that bind the universe together. It was not just Qui-Gon's death that set him apart. It was his acceptance of the Force's living nature. The Jedi Order, for all its wisdom, had long relied on the concept of detachment from the emotional and chaotic aspects of life. Their philosophy emphasized control over the Force, discipline, and the suppression of emotions. While this brought stability, it also limited their understanding of the Force as a living entity. Qui-Gon, on the other hand, had always believed that the Force should be embraced in all its unpredictability and vitality. He understood that the Force was not a mere tool to be used by Jedi for their purposes. It was a force of creation and destruction, of light and dark, of harmony and chaos. This belief, which set Qui-Gon apart from the mainstream Jedi philosophy, gave him access to a deeper understanding of the Force, and as a result an uncharted path after his death. Qui-Gon's fate was not just tied to his own death, but to the choices of those he had mentored. The guidance he provided to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker was not just about the present, but about the larger flow of the Force. In Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon saw a soul capable of great wisdom, but also one that would need to confront the darkest of times. The struggles that Obi-Wan faced after Qui-Gon's death, leading Anakin through his trials and confronting the looming shadow of the Sith, were all parts of a larger tapestry. Qui-Gon had always known that the galaxy was destined for conflict, but he also knew that balance could be achieved only through understanding the deeper truths of the Force. He had planted the seeds of this wisdom within Obi-Wan, and through Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon continued to influence the galaxy, guiding him from beyond the veil of death. Anakin Skywalker, as the Chosen One, was another key figure in Qui-Gon's eternal journey. Qui-Gon's unwavering belief in Anakin's potential, despite the growing darkness within him, was grounded in the understanding that redemption was not just a possibility, but a certainty. Qui Gon's death did not sever his bond with Anakin, it only deepened it. In the moments of Anakin's greatest despair, when he stood on the precipice of the dark side, it was Qui Gon's influence that reached out to him. Though Anakin could not hear Qui Gon's voice as Obi-Wan had, his master's teachings were deeply ingrained within him. In the most pivotal moment of Anakin's life, his ultimate decision to destroy the Emperor and restore balance to the Force, it was Qui Gon's belief in him that allowed Anakin to act. It was Qui Gon's understanding of the living Force, his belief in the possibility of transformation, that gave Anakin the clarity he needed to fulfill his destiny. Qui Gon's fate after death, therefore, is inextricably linked to the concept of eternal wisdom. The idea that the Force is not merely a power to be wielded, but a living, breathing essence that connects all things. Qui Gon's transcendence was not about escaping the cycle of life and death. It was about embracing the endless flow of the Force. His unique connection to the Force allowed him to understand the interconnectedness of all things, to see the larger patterns at play in the galaxy. His role was not to control or dominate the Force, but to guide others in understanding its true nature. In this sense, Qui Gon became an eternal guide, a presence that continued to shape the galaxy even after his physical death. The legacy of Qui Gon Jinn after death was not merely philosophical. It had real, tangible consequences for the future of the galaxy. The Jedi Order, in the aftermath of the Clone Wars and the fall of the Sith, began to reevaluate its teachings. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, who had both experienced Qui Gon's wisdom firsthand, began to understand the importance of the living Force in a way that the old Jedi Council never had. Qui Gon's teachings became the foundation for a new Jedi philosophy, one that embraced the unpredictability of the Force, accepted the chaos of life, and sought to understand rather than control. This new understanding would be critical for the rebuilding of the Jedi Order and for the restoration of balance in the galaxy. Qui Gon's legacy, though not always visible, continued to shape the future of the Jedi, the Force, and the galaxy itself. Qui Gon's transcendence also held profound implications for the larger cosmology of the Force. His ability to remain present after death challenged the traditional understanding of the afterlife within the Force. The Jedi had long believed that death led to an eternal union with the Force. But Qui Gon's ability to continue influencing the galaxy from beyond the veil suggested that there was more to the Force than had been previously understood. Qui Gon's fate opened new doors for those who followed, offering them the possibility that death was not the end, but the beginning of a new form of existence, a continued journey within the Force, one that transcended the limitations of the physical world. The ultimate mystery of Qui Gon Jinn's fate lies not in the answers, but in the questions he left behind. His death was not an end, but a continuation of his journey within the Force. His belief in the living Force, his embrace of chaos and unpredictability, and his ability to transcend death itself changed the course of galactic history. Qui Gon's legacy was not just a matter of wisdom imparted to others. It was a living, breathing force that continued to shape the destiny of the galaxy. His fate after death was a testament to the eternal power of the Force, and the understanding that life and death are not separate, but part of the same eternal cycle. The story of Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death unfolds as one of the greatest mysteries within the Star Wars universe. His journey, which seemed to end abruptly with his death at the hands of Darth Maul, was only the beginning of a much deeper exploration into the cosmic nature of the Force. Qui Gon's death did not mark the end of his influence on the galaxy. Instead, it initiated a journey that would transcend the boundaries of life and death, connecting him to the cosmic force in a manner that only the truly enlightened could understand. His transcendence and continued presence beyond physical death shed light on a dimension of the Force that even the greatest Jedi had not fully grasped: the cosmic force, a metaphysical aspect that shaped the destinies of all beings across time and space. In the teachings of the Jedi Order, the Force is often described as being divided into two main aspects: the living Force, which is concerned with the present moment and the personal experience of individuals, and the cosmic force, which is concerned with the larger, universal patterns that govern the galaxy and all of existence. The living force is an individual's connection to the energy field that permeates life, guiding their actions and decisions in the present. The cosmic force, on the other hand, represents the greater overarching patterns and flows of energy that determine the fate of entire civilizations, the balance between light and dark, and the ultimate course of history itself. Qui Gon Jinn's understanding of the Force was unique in that he sought to embrace both the living force and the cosmic force, recognizing that they were not separate, but deeply intertwined. His belief in the living force, his focus on being attuned to the present moment, was a direct result of his connection to the cosmic force. He saw the Force not just as a tool to be used for personal gain, but as an omnipresent energy that connected all things, from the smallest particle of matter to the vastest stretches of the galaxy. His understanding of this unity allowed him to perceive the Force in ways that others, even the Jedi Council, could not. When Qui Gon Jinn died, his connection to the cosmic force did not sever, as it would for many other Jedi who passed. Instead, his deep connection to both the living and cosmic aspects of the Force allowed him to transcend the boundaries of the physical world and continue to influence the universe from beyond the veil. His presence within the cosmic force was not bound by the limitations of space and time. He became a part of the very fabric of the galaxy, his consciousness blending with the universal flow of the Force itself. Through this cosmic connection, Qui-Gon's wisdom, teachings, and influence continued to resonate throughout the galaxy, shaping the destinies of those who were open to the Force's guidance. One of the most significant aspects of Qui-Gon's transcendence was his ability to influence the flow of events in the galaxy in subtle but powerful ways. His death was not a finality, but a transition to a higher form of existence, one that allowed him to guide the galaxy's future from a place beyond physical limitations. His connection to the cosmic force gave him access to the larger patterns and interconnectedness of the universe. Through this understanding, Qui-Gon was able to see the potential for balance between the light and dark sides of the Force, even when the galaxy seemed to be at its darkest. While the Jedi Order had long believed in the idea of the Force as an impersonal, detached energy, Qui-Gon saw the Force as something far more personal. He believed that the Force was not just an abstract concept, but a living, breathing entity that responded to the intentions of those who wielded it. His ability to transcend death allowed him to see that the Force was not a static, immutable force, but a dynamic and ever-changing energy that could be influenced by the choices of individuals. Through this understanding, Qui-Gon was able to continue his role as a guide and teacher, influencing the fates of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and others who would shape the future of the galaxy. Qui-Gon's connection to the cosmic force was not only a reflection of his spiritual enlightenment, but also an essential element of his role in the larger destiny of the galaxy. His belief in Anakin Skywalker, as the Chosen One, was rooted in his understanding of the Force's cosmic balance. Qui-Gon recognized that Anakin was not just a key figure in the battle between light and dark, but a central figure in the greater cosmic struggle. Through his influence on Anakin's journey, Qui Gon was able to guide the Chosen One toward his ultimate role in the restoration of balance to the Force. The ultimate test of Qui Gon's influence within the cosmic force came at the height of Anakin's struggle between the light and dark sides. As Anakin descended further into the darkness, torn between his fear of loss and his desire for power, it was Qui Gon's presence that reached out to him. Qui Gon's teachings, his belief in Anakin's potential, and his understanding of the Force's interconnectedness helped Anakin realize that redemption was still within his grasp. Through Qui Gon's influence, Anakin was able to make the ultimate choice to destroy the Emperor and bring balance to the Force, fulfilling his destiny as the Chosen One. Qui Gon's fate after death also became integral to the larger understanding of the Force's role in the galaxy. The Jedi, after the fall of the Sith and the restoration of peace, began to re-evaluate their understanding of the Force. The lessons learned from Qui Gon's transcendence became the foundation for a new era of Jedi philosophy, one that embraced the unity of the living and cosmic forces. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, who had both witnessed Qui Gon's wisdom firsthand, began to teach future generations of Jedi the importance of being attuned to the larger flow of the Force. They taught that the Force was not something to be controlled or dominated, but something to be understood and embraced in all its forms, both the chaotic, unpredictable living force and the grand, timeless cosmic force. The mystery of Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death was not just a personal journey of enlightenment, it was a key to understanding the greater workings of the Force. His transcendence allowed him to tap into the cosmic force, and in doing so, he became a permanent part of the universal energy that governed all life. His legacy was not limited to the physical realm, nor was it bound by the traditional boundaries of life and death. Qui Gon's influence continued to shape the galaxy through his spiritual connection to the Force, guiding the Jedi, the Sith, and all beings who sought to understand its mysteries. In the final analysis, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death serves as a reminder that the Force is not a static, impersonal power, but a living, breathing energy that is shaped by the choices and actions of all beings. Through his unique connection to both the living and cosmic forces, Qui Gon transcended death, becoming an eternal part of the galaxy's spiritual fabric. His teachings, his wisdom, and his influence continue to resonate through the ages, guiding the galaxy toward balance and harmony. Qui Gon Jinn's journey after death defies conventional understanding within the Star Wars universe. His transcendence, a feat no Jedi before him had achieved in such a profound and direct manner, shattered the very concept of death as the final boundary of existence. Qui Gon's continued presence beyond the mortal realm was not merely an ethereal afterthought. It was a deliberate, active continuation of his influence on the galaxy. His existence as a bridge between the realms of life and death allowed him to influence the events of the galaxy long after his physical death. Qui Gon Jinn became something more than just a Force ghost. He became a living force within the cosmic and living forces, a manifestation of balance that could guide others to their destinies. To fully understand Qui Gon's fate after death, one must first examine the nature of the Force as it relates to life, death, and beyond. The Jedi Order had long taught that death was a necessary part of the Force's natural cycle, a return to the cosmic flow from which all things came. In this sense, death was viewed as a return to the Force, a peaceful, inevitable dissolution into the greater whole. However, Qui Gon's connection to the living Force allowed him to break free of these limitations. His mastery over his own destiny did not end with his death. Rather, it continued through his deep understanding of the Force's nature, which allowed him to move between realms. For most Jedi, The process of becoming a Force ghost involved surrendering to the cosmic flow of the Force, allowing their consciousness to dissipate into the greater energy field. The Force ghost would then manifest only when called upon by another Force-sensitive individual, usually to offer guidance or counsel. However, Qui Gon did not follow the same path. His connection to the living Force was profound, and it was this very connection that allowed him to persist beyond death. Not as a fleeting vision or ghostly apparition, but as an active participant in the ongoing struggle between light and dark. What made Qui-Gon's existence after death unique was his ability to remain an active, guiding presence. He became a bridge between the living world and the world beyond, a nexus of energy that allowed him to influence the actions of the living, even if indirectly. While Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda could be seen as traditional Force ghosts, offering counsel through their spectral appearances, Qui-Gon's connection to the Force allowed him to influence events in a way that was more subtle but equally profound. His spirit did not merely linger. It became part of the greater cosmic current, a force for guidance and wisdom that transcended time and space. The true depth of Qui-Gon's connection to the Force became evident in the moments leading up to the ultimate confrontation between Anakin Skywalker and the Emperor. Anakin, who had long struggled with his own inner turmoil, was at a crossroads in his destiny. Though he had fallen to the dark side, the echoes of Qui-Gon's teachings continued to resonate within him. Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin's potential for redemption, which had never wavered, was a key factor in the Jedi Master's influence over Anakin's eventual return to the light. The pivotal moment of Anakin's redemption, when he chose to destroy the Emperor and save his son, was not just the result of Luke Skywalker's faith. It was also the culmination of Qui-Gon's influence on Anakin's destiny. Qui-Gon had always believed in the potential of Anakin to bring balance to the Force, and it was this belief that allowed Anakin to break free of the chains of darkness. The act of redemption was not just a personal victory for Anakin, it was the fulfillment of the greater prophecy that Qui-Gon had once foreseen, a prophecy that was not just about Anakin's individual journey, but about the larger cosmic balance. In this sense, Qui-Gon Jinn's fate after death was intricately connected to the idea of the Force as a living, evolving entity. The Force was not just a static energy field that governed the galaxy. It was a living, breathing entity that responded to the will of those who were attuned to it. Qui-Gon's spiritual journey allowed him to tap into this living energy, to become one with it and in turn shape the very events of the galaxy. His transcendence was not an escape from the physical world, but a deeper immersion into the cosmic flow, a continuing connection to the universal energy that bound all things together. Qui-Gon's influence extended far beyond his personal relationship with Obi-Wan and Anakin. The galaxy, in its most tumultuous times, would find its course subtly altered by the wisdom that Qui-Gon imparted. His legacy lived on in the hearts of those who sought balance in their lives, in the teachings of the Jedi, and in the way the Force flowed through the galaxy. The true measure of Qui-Gon's fate was not in the way he lived or died, but in the way his spirit continued to shape the future, guiding others toward their destinies. The greatest mystery of Qui-Gon Jinn's fate after death, then, is not simply how he continued to exist, but how he came to embody the very essence of balance itself. His teachings, which once seemed unorthodox and misunderstood, became the foundation for a new understanding of the Force. He became not just a symbol of individual transcendence, but of the greater cosmic balance between light and dark, life and death. Qui Gon's legacy was one of spiritual enlightenment, but also of practical wisdom, the understanding that death is not an end, but a transition, and that through embracing the chaos and unpredictability of the Force, one could transcend the limitations of the physical world. In the end, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death was a story of transformation, not just for him, but for the galaxy. His ability to transcend the mortal realm and continue to guide those who followed him became a symbol of the deeper mysteries of the Force. He was not just a Jedi Master, he was a force for balance, an entity that lived within the Force itself, shaping the destinies of those who sought its guidance. His transcendence was a reminder that life and death are not separate, but part of the same eternal flow, a flow that Qui Gon Jinn, in his wisdom and his understanding, had learned to navigate with grace and purpose. The journey of Qui Gon Jinn did not end with his death, nor did his influence over the galaxy cease to exist once his body was struck down by Darth Maul. His fate after death reveals the power of the Force in its purest, most transformative form. Qui Gon Jinn was more than a Jedi Master. He was a force of nature within the cosmic balance that connected all things. Through his transcendence, Qui Gon not only broke through the limitations of physical death, but also became an ultimate teacher of the Force. A teacher whose lessons were not bound by time or space, but whose wisdom continued to shape the galaxy's destiny long after his death. In the Star Wars universe, the relationship between the Jedi and the Force is one of profound complexity. The Force is both a guiding power and a mysterious energy that can be both understood and misunderstood, embraced or feared. For most Jedi, the Force is something to be controlled, something that requires discipline and structure. But for Qui Gon, the Force was not simply something to be controlled, it was something to be felt, lived, and experienced in its fullest capacity. His embrace of the living Force, which focused on the present moment and the immediate guidance the Force provides, distinguished him from his peers and gave him access to a deeper understanding of the universe's fundamental energies. It was this understanding that allowed Qui Gon Jinn to transcend death. His connection to the Force was unlike that of any other Jedi. While the Jedi Order taught that the Force could be used to attain a sense of peace and control over one's emotions, Qui Gon believed that true understanding came from embracing the Force as a dynamic, ever-changing and unpredictable entity. He did not fear the chaos of life. He welcomed it as part of the larger design of the Force. This philosophy not only shaped Qui Gon's life, but it also guided him beyond death, allowing him to become a spiritual guide whose presence remained embedded in the very fabric of the Force. In his death, Qui Gon achieved something extraordinary. Unlike most Jedi, who faded into the Force, becoming indistinguishable from the cosmic energy that flowed through all living things, Qui Gon retained his consciousness, his understanding, and his will. He was not simply a ghostly figure lingering in the shadows of the Force. He became part of the Force in its entirety, a presence within the cosmic currents of energy that shaped the galaxy. His connection to the Force transcended the linear understanding of life and death. He was not a remnant of the past, but an active force within the eternal flow of the universe. Qui Gon's continued presence within the Force was not limited to abstract, ethereal manifestations of wisdom. He became a teacher, imparting lessons not through direct interaction, but through the subtle currents of the Force itself. His influence was felt by those who were open to its guidance. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and later, Luke Skywalker. These individuals, all pivotal figures in the galaxy's struggle, felt Qui Gon's wisdom in ways that were difficult to articulate. His presence was not a loud, boisterous intervention, but a gentle, constant whisper that guided them on their paths. For Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui Gon's influence was perhaps the most profound. Obi-Wan, though a Jedi Knight of great skill, was often conflicted between his duty to the Jedi Order and his deep connection to the people he cared about. The responsibility placed on him, particularly in the aftermath of Anakin's fall, was immense, and it was during these moments of trial that Qui Gon's voice resonated the most. Obi-Wan often found himself wrestling with difficult decisions, but it was Qui Gon's teachings that reminded him of the importance of trust in the Force. Qui Gon, from beyond death, continued to guide his former apprentice in ways that helped him maintain his faith and resolve. It was Qui Gon's unwavering belief in the potential for balance within the Force that laid the foundation for his role as a teacher of the Force after his death. Unlike the Jedi Council, which adhered to rigid doctrines and dogmas, Qui Gon recognized that the Force was not meant to be controlled or understood through intellectualism alone. It was a living, breathing energy, one that could be felt in every moment. And it was this understanding that allowed Qui Gon to guide others. His teachings were not bound by the physical constraints of the galaxy or by time. He was no longer limited to the teachings of the Jedi Order, but had transcended to a level of spiritual understanding that made him an eternal teacher, able to shape the destinies of those who would come after him. Qui Gon's belief in Anakin Skywalker as the Chosen One was a key part of his legacy as a teacher. While many within the Jedi Order were suspicious of Anakin's potential, seeing him as a threat rather than a savior, Qui Gon saw in him the promise of balance, the restoration of equilibrium between light and dark. His belief in Anakin's destiny was unwavering, even as the boy struggled with fear, anger, and loss. In Qui Gon's eyes, Anakin was not a simple pawn in the greater galactic struggle. He was a figure of cosmic importance, one whose destiny would reshape the entire galaxy. Despite the challenges that Anakin faced, Qui Gon's belief in him did not fade with his death. Even after Anakin's fall to the dark side, Qui Gon's teachings remained embedded in Anakin's heart, guiding him during the final moments of his life. It was Qui Gon's understanding of the living Force and the cosmic force that allowed Anakin to make the ultimate choice to destroy the Emperor and fulfill his destiny as the Chosen One. Qui Gon's spiritual guidance, even from beyond the veil, was the final piece of the puzzle that allowed Anakin to redeem himself. Qui Gon's legacy as a teacher of the Force is further evidenced in the way his teachings influenced the Jedi Order. After the fall of the Sith, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, who had both witnessed Qui Gon's wisdom firsthand, began to understand the importance of embracing the living Force and the cosmic force in a way that was more holistic and balanced. They realized that the Jedi Order's previous teachings had been too rigid, too focused on control and detachment. The new Jedi, following Qui Gon's example, began to embrace the living, breathing energy of the Force and accepted that balance was not something that could be imposed. It was something to be understood and felt in every moment. Qui Gon's fate after death, therefore, represents not just the continuation of his spiritual journey, but the evolution of the Jedi understanding of the Force. His teachings, though initially dismissed by the Council, became the foundation for a new era of Jedi philosophy, one that embraced the totality of the Force, both its light and its dark aspects. He became the ultimate teacher of the Force, not through grand gestures or direct interventions, but through his ability to influence the galaxy from beyond the physical realm. His legacy was not just a matter of wisdom imparted in life. It was a spiritual presence that continued to guide, teach, and shape the destinies of those who followed him. In the end, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death is a reminder that death is not the end of one's journey, but a continuation, a transition into a deeper understanding of the universe's greater patterns. Through his transcendence, Qui-Gon became more than a Jedi Master. He became a bridge between realms, an eternal teacher whose wisdom shaped the galaxy for generations to come. His understanding of the Force as a living entity, and his embrace of both the living and cosmic forces, allowed him to transcend death and continue guiding those who were attuned to its flow. His legacy lives on, not in the form of a mere Force ghost, but as a living presence within the Force itself. Qui Gon Jinn's story is far from a simple narrative of a Jedi Master's life and death. His true legacy, one that transcends the boundaries of the physical world, continues to resonate through the very fabric of the galaxy long after his death. His transcendence through the Force, becoming a presence that is felt but never fully seen, has had far-reaching consequences, so much so that his actions as a teacher and spiritual guide reverberated across generations. His legacy is not one that is marked by traditional heroism, but one that involves guiding others from the shadows, nudging them toward their destinies, and ultimately serving as a catalyst for profound change within the galaxy. Qui-Gon's continued influence after death was never more evident than in the critical moments of Anakin Skywalker's life. Anakin's journey, marked by light and darkness in equal measure, was destined to change the galaxy. But it was Qui-Gon's unyielding faith in Anakin's potential to bring balance to the Force, even when everyone else doubted him, that set the stage for Anakin's eventual redemption. Qui-Gon did not act as a traditional teacher or guide in the ways of the Jedi. His role was to believe in the greater good, to trust in the Force's ability to heal, and to impart that wisdom, albeit subtly, to Anakin. The true depth of Qui-Gon's influence after death was rooted in his understanding of the Force's greater workings. The Jedi of the Old Order had been taught that the Force was a cosmic energy field with two distinct sides, light and dark. The Jedi, as guardians of the light side, worked tirelessly to maintain peace and order within the galaxy. Yet, as the events of the prequel trilogy show, the Jedi had failed to understand the complexity of the Force's balance. They were too focused on the idea of control and stability, viewing the dark side as something to be eradicated rather than understood as a natural, albeit dangerous, part of the Force's cycle. Qui-Gon, on the other hand, had always believed that the Force was an entity of balance, not one that could simply be divided between light and dark. The Force was a dynamic, living energy that thrived on contrast, and it was the interplay between these forces, light and dark, that created true harmony. His deep connection to the living Force allowed him to see this balance and to understand the importance of Anakin's role in bringing it about. Unlike the Jedi Council, who saw Anakin as a threat to be controlled, Qui-Gon saw him as the key to unlocking the Force's ultimate harmony. In this, Qui-Gon's vision was far broader than any other Jedi's. Even in death, Qui-Gon's faith in Anakin did not falter. While the Jedi Order was forced into hiding after the rise of the Empire, and Obi-Wan Kenobi wrestled with his failure to prevent Anakin's fall, Qui-Gon's subtle guidance continued to affect the galaxy's course. His presence, though hidden, resonated within Anakin's subconscious, reminding him of the good that once existed within him. In the darkest hours of Anakin's life, when all hope seemed lost, it was Qui-Gon's teachings that gave Anakin the clarity he needed to make his final choice, to redeem himself and destroy the Emperor. In this way, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death was not simply one of survival, His continued presence was not the lingering essence of a Jedi Master who had failed in his own time. Instead, Qui Gon's transcendence became a source of quiet but powerful guidance for those who needed it most. His spirit acted as a force of wisdom and redemption for the galaxy, not through grandiose appearances or direct interventions, but through the subtle ways his teachings continued to shape the destinies of those he had touched during his lifetime. Qui Gon's journey also revealed a profound truth about the nature of death itself. His transcendence demonstrated that death was not an end, but a continuation of the greater journey of existence. The Jedi, as wise as they were, had been taught to view death as the final step into the Force, a merging of one's consciousness with the greater cosmic energy. However, Qui Gon had transcended this understanding. He was not simply absorbed by the Force, but became a conscious part of it, remaining a teacher and guide even after his physical death. His transcendence shows that the boundaries between life and death, between the physical world and the realm of the spirit, are not as rigid as once believed. It's not that death becomes irrelevant. Rather, it becomes a new stage of existence, one where the individual can continue to shape the universe in ways that were not possible during their physical lives. Qui Gon's story is a testament to this principle. He was not simply a Jedi Master who returned as a Force ghost. He had become one with the Force, yet his influence was far from passive. He remained an active participant in the events of the galaxy, guiding Obi-Wan, Anakin, and others as they faced their greatest trials. Even the Jedi Order itself would ultimately be shaped by Qui Gon's legacy. The old guard of the Jedi, who adhered to a rigid set of rules and regulations, had failed to foresee the rise of the Sith and the destruction of the Republic. Qui Gon's teachings would be the catalyst for a new understanding of the Force, one that did not rely solely on the division between light and dark, but recognized the fluid, ever-changing nature of the galaxy. His spiritual enlightenment, his recognition of the Force as a living, evolving entity, became the foundation for the Jedi's future philosophy. Obi-Wan and Yoda, two of the most important Jedi survivors, would take this lesson with them, passing it on to future generations as the Jedi Order was rebuilt. Qui Gon's fate after death was, in many ways, the fulfillment of his own teachings. His belief in the living Force, his recognition of the importance of the present moment, and his understanding of the interconnectedness of all things in the galaxy became his ultimate legacy. His transcendence was not a static existence. It was an active force for change in the galaxy. Qui Gon Jinn, even after his death, continued to shape the destinies of those he had touched, guiding them through their darkest moments and pushing them toward their ultimate fulfillment. Through his transcendence, Qui Gon Jinn became the embodiment of the Force's true nature. Death, in his case, was not a boundary. It was a bridge between worlds, a continuation of his journey that allowed him to guide the galaxy in ways that would have been impossible during his physical life. His story is not simply one of survival, but of transformation, of understanding that the Force is not bound by time, space, or even life itself. Qui Gon Jinn, the eternal teacher, had become one with the Force, and through his wisdom, he continued to guide the galaxy toward balance and harmony. Qui Gon Jinn's transcendence after death symbolizes not only his personal evolution as a Jedi, but also the spiritual evolution of the Jedi Order itself. The Jedi, long considered guardians of peace and justice, were limited by their doctrines, which emphasized control, detachment, and the suppression of emotions. These teachings, while vital to their role as keepers of peace, also created a rigid framework that constrained their understanding of the Force. Qui Gon, however, was a radical thinker who saw beyond these restrictions. His embrace of the living force, an idea that was at odds with the traditional teachings of the Order, allowed him to connect with the Force in a way that would alter the course of galactic history. His fate after death, far from being a simple afterthought, became the cornerstone for the Jedi's transformation, a key to understanding the deeper, more fluid nature of the Force itself. Qui-Gon's approach to the Force, which emphasized attunement to the present moment, set him apart from his fellow Jedi. He rejected the conventional focus on predicting the future or controlling events, recognizing that the true power of the Force lay in living with it, in surrendering to the present, and in trusting the Force's natural flow. His death did not close the door to his wisdom, but instead opened a new chapter, allowing him to become a spiritual force that continued to influence the galaxy's destiny. The Jedi Order, having failed to recognize the full scope of Qui-Gon's teachings during his lifetime, would come to understand his profound insight only after his death. His transcendence became a bridge between the past and the future, allowing the Jedi to evolve beyond their former limitations. For Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon's posthumous influence became a lifeline during the darkest days of the Clone Wars. The war, with its devastation and uncertainty, forced Obi-Wan to question many of the values he had held dear. But in these moments of inner conflict, Qui-Gon's voice, though faint, continued to guide him. Obi-Wan, who had once struggled to accept Qui-Gon's unorthodox beliefs, began to understand their true value. Qui-Gon's teachings on the living force, on embracing the chaos of the universe, instead of fearing it, gave Obi-Wan the clarity to navigate his responsibilities as both a Jedi and a mentor. In his darkest hour, when the fate of Anakin seemed sealed, Obi-Wan recalled Qui-Gon's unwavering belief in Anakin's potential. This belief would become a beacon for Obi-Wan, reminding him that there was always hope for redemption, no matter how far one had fallen. Anakin Skywalker's fate was similarly shaped by Qui-Gon's teachings, even after the Jedi Master's death. The unique bond between Qui-Gon and Anakin, one that had begun when Qui-Gon first believed in Anakin's potential as the Chosen One, endured beyond the physical realm, even as Anakin was consumed by his fear, anger, and the seductive allure of the dark side. Qui-Gon's faith in him never wavered. In his final moments, when Anakin stood at the precipice of his destiny, Qui-Gon's teachings remained embedded within him, guiding him toward the pivotal decision to destroy the Emperor and fulfill his role as the Chosen One. The subtlety of Qui-Gon's influence after death is what makes it so profound. Unlike the overt guidance provided by Force ghosts like Obi-Wan and Yoda, Qui-Gon's wisdom did not manifest in grand gestures or visions. His influence was much more nuanced, like a current flowing through the galaxy, gently nudging individuals toward their destinies. His role as a teacher did not end with his death. It became even more important, for it was in the realm of the cosmic force that Qui-Gon's wisdom truly took root. The Jedi who survived the fall of the Sith would carry with them the lessons that Qui-Gon had imparted, lessons that emphasized the fluid, interconnected nature of the Force and the importance of living in harmony with its flow. Qui-Gon's transcendence also marked the beginning of a philosophical shift within the Jedi Order. In the aftermath of the Clone Wars and the rise of the Empire, the Jedi Order, nearly decimated, would need to reevaluate its teachings. Obi-Wan and Yoda, who had both experienced Qui-Gon's teachings firsthand, began to recognize the limitations of the old Jedi ways. The traditional Jedi emphasis on control and detachment, while important in maintaining peace, had failed to address the deeper complexities of the Force. Qui-Gon's belief in the living Force, which emphasized personal connection and trust in the moment, provided the Jedi with the missing piece of their philosophy. The Jedi Order's eventual rebuilding would be grounded in Qui Gon's vision, a vision that acknowledged the importance of embracing the unpredictability of life and the vastness of the Force. The new Jedi Order, as it emerged from the ashes of the Empire's reign, would not simply return to the teachings of the past. It would build upon the foundation that Qui Gon had laid, one that embraced the living, breathing energy of the Force and understood that balance could not be maintained through control alone. The Force was not something to be dominated or compartmentalized, but something to be felt, lived, and experienced in its totality. This understanding of the Force would guide future Jedi, including Luke Skywalker, as they sought to restore peace and justice to the galaxy. Qui-Gon's legacy, as a teacher and spiritual guide, became the framework for the future of the Jedi. His transcendence after death, which allowed him to remain a force of wisdom in the galaxy, revealed the true nature of the Force as a living, evolving energy that could never be fully understood through rigid doctrines or intellectual analysis. It was not the Jedi Council's doctrines that would guide the galaxy toward balance, but an understanding of the Force's greater interconnected patterns that Qui-Gon had glimpsed during his lifetime and continued to reveal in his transcendence. In the final analysis, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death was not just the continuation of his own journey, but the beginning of a new era for the Jedi Order and the galaxy at large. His influence, though subtle, was the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of the Force, one that embraced the living Force and the cosmic Force as two inseparable aspects of the same energy. His transcendence allowed the Jedi to evolve beyond their previous limitations, and his teachings would guide them through the challenges they would face in the future. Qui-Gon's legacy was not just the result of his physical actions during his lifetime, but the lasting impact of his spiritual journey, which continued to shape the galaxy long after his death. Qui Gon Jinn's story, then, is not just a tale of a Jedi Master's life and death. It is a story of spiritual evolution, of understanding the Force in its deepest, most profound form. His transcendence, his connection to the cosmic Force, and his subtle guidance of those who followed him became the foundation for the Jedi's future philosophy. Qui-Gon's fate after death was the key to unlocking the Force's true nature, and his influence would shape the destiny of the galaxy for generations to come. Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death presents an intricate paradox, one that transcends the simple concepts of life, death, and legacy. It is the story of a Jedi who, after his physical death, continues to shape the galaxy in ways that are both subtle and profound. The mystery of Qui Gon's transcendence lies not only in his ability to continue influencing the galaxy after death, but also in the way he navigated the relationship between fate and free will. A core philosophical question at the heart of the Force. In the Star Wars universe, fate plays a significant role, especially concerning Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, whose destiny was foretold to bring balance to the Force. However, fate is not as clear-cut as the prophecy suggests. It is through Qui-Gon's unique understanding of the Force that we begin to see the true complexity of destiny. Unlike the Jedi Council, which adhered to strict interpretations of prophecy and destiny, Qui-Gon recognized that the Force's will was not something to be predicted or controlled. Instead, he embraced the idea that destiny, though important, could be shaped by the choices of individuals, by their free will. Qui-Gon's belief in the power of free will was evident throughout his life. His willingness to defy the Jedi Council, to take risks, and to follow his instincts made him a maverick within the Order. He believed that true understanding of the Force came from trusting in one's personal connection to it, rather than relying on strict rules or predetermined paths. This philosophy extended into his death and transcendence. After his physical death, Qui Gon's influence continued to shape the galaxy, but his actions were not driven by a desire to fulfill a prophecy. Instead, his presence in the Force remained a force for change, subtly guiding those with the strength to make their own choices. The relationship between Qui Gon and Anakin Skywalker is at the core of this paradox between fate and free will. The Jedi believed that Anakin's destiny as the Chosen One was predetermined, that he was destined to bring balance to the Force. However, Anakin's path was never as simple as fate alone. His journey was fraught with choices, many of which were shaped by his fears, emotions, and attachments, things that the Jedi Order sought to suppress. Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin was rooted in the understanding that Anakin's destiny could be altered by his free will. It was not enough to simply follow a predetermined path. Anakin had to choose his own way, and it was Qui-Gon who believed even after his death that Anakin could make the right choices. Qui-Gon's fate after death was intricately tied to Anakin's ultimate redemption. After Anakin fell to the dark side, the galaxy seemed to be on the brink of destruction, with the Sith in control and the Jedi all but wiped out. Yet, even as Anakin descended into darkness, Qui-Gon's teachings continued to resonate within him. It was Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin's potential that even from beyond the grave remained a guiding force in his life. Unlike the Jedi Council, which had viewed Anakin as a tool of prophecy, Qui-Gon saw him as an individual with the power to make choices that would shape the galaxy's future. This influence was not direct or overt, but it was ever present in Anakin's journey. Qui-Gon's subtle guidance allowed Anakin to confront his fears and ultimately make the choice that would bring balance to the Force. In the final moments of Anakin's life, when he faced the Emperor, it was Qui-Gon's voice, though silent, that guided Anakin to destroy the Sith and redeem himself. Anakin's final act of redemption was not just the fulfillment of a prophecy. It was the result of Anakin's free will, the ability to choose a different path despite the weight of his past mistakes. Qui-Gon's transcendence after death also illuminated the Force's deeper mystery. He understood that the Force was not a linear force, controlled by time and destiny. Instead, it was a living entity, with its energy flowing through all things. The relationship between fate and free will in the Force was not as clear-cut as the Jedi believed. Destiny was important, but it was not the sole determinant of one's path. Qui-Gon recognized that the Force's will was not something to be passively accepted, but something to be actively engaged with. It was through this understanding that Qui-Gon's spirit continued to guide those who sought to walk the path of the Force, allowing them the freedom to shape their own destinies. In the broader context of the galaxy, Qui-Gon's influence after death demonstrated that the choices of individuals were not just shaped by their destinies, but by the decisions they made in the present moment. The Force was not simply a force of predetermination, it was a force of possibility. Qui-Gon's unique connection to the Force and his transcendence after death opened a new way of thinking about the Force's role in the galaxy. No longer was the Force simply an instrument of fate. It became a tool for empowerment, for guiding individuals to make choices that would ultimately shape the destiny of the galaxy. This new understanding of the Force as a living, evolving energy that allowed for both fate and free will to coexist was a critical shift in the Jedi philosophy. Qui-Gon's death, and his continued presence in the Force became a turning point for the Jedi Order. As the Order sought to rebuild after the fall of the Sith, Qui Gon's teachings would be the foundation for the new understanding of the Force. The Jedi would learn that true balance could not be achieved by simply adhering to rules and doctrines. It was through embracing the living, dynamic nature of the Force, through recognizing both the role of fate and the power of free will, that the galaxy could finally achieve harmony. Qui Gon's fate after death, then, was not just a continuation of his journey, it was a transformation of the very understanding of the Force. His ability to influence the galaxy, even in death, revealed the true power of choice, of free will, and of understanding one's place within the larger cosmic flow. Qui Gon's transcendence was a reminder that death was not the end, but a beginning where the boundaries between life, death, and the Force itself were no longer fixed. His teachings, even after his passing, would continue to inspire generations to come, ensuring that the galaxy could learn to embrace both fate and free will in its struggle for balance. The true mystery of Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death lies not just in his spiritual survival or his guidance from beyond the grave, but in the profound way his understanding of the Force redefined the relationship between life, death, and the universe. Qui Gon's journey, both during his life and after his physical death, was not bound by conventional Jedi teachings. His transcendent state after death revealed a deeper aspect of the Force that had long been ignored or misunderstood by the Jedi Order. The idea that the Force is a living, ever-evolving entity that connects all things and all times. His fate is ultimately not just about his own spiritual evolution, but about the future of the Jedi and the galaxy itself. Qui Gon's belief in the living Force, his deep connection to the present moment, and his refusal to adhere to rigid Jedi doctrines allowed him to break free from the limitations that the Jedi Council had placed on the nature of death. While the Jedi Order saw death as a natural part of the cosmic cycle, something that all beings must pass through to return to the Force, Qui Gon recognized that death was not an end, but a continuation. This understanding was the foundation of his transcendence. He did not simply merge with the Force, as most Jedi did. Instead, he became one with it in a unique way, maintaining his consciousness and connection to the galaxy beyond the physical realm. Through his transcendence, Qui Gon Jinn demonstrated that the Force was not simply an impersonal energy field to be controlled, but a living, dynamic force that responded to the intentions and actions of individuals. His continued presence in the Force after death, guiding Obi-Wan, Anakin, and later Luke Skywalker, revealed that the Force was not only alive in the physical world, but existed beyond it. Qui Gon's existence was not merely a passive, ethereal presence like the typical Force ghost. He had become an active part of the cosmic flow, influencing the choices of the living and guiding the galaxy's path, even when unseen. One of the most significant revelations about Qui Gon's fate after death is his role in the ongoing relationship between the living Force and the cosmic Force. While the Jedi Order had traditionally focused on the cosmic Force, viewing it as the grand overarching energy that guided the galaxy's fate, Qui Gon's embrace of the living Force was a crucial shift in understanding. The living Force emphasized the importance of the present moment, the here and now, and the actions of individuals within their immediate surroundings. It was this philosophy that allowed Qui Gon to transcend death, as he remained deeply connected to the present and could continue guiding those who sought the Force's wisdom. In his continued spiritual form, Qui Gon served as a bridge between the living Force and the cosmic Force. His transcendence allowed him to remain an active participant in the cosmic flow, not as a distant observer, but as an integral part of the energy that connected all things. In this way, Qui Gon's fate after death was not an isolated event, but a continuation of the Force's greater purpose, a purpose that was rooted in balance and harmony between all things, living and non-living, material and spiritual. The way Qui Gon influenced the galaxy after his death, guiding Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and later Luke Skywalker, reveals the deeper mysteries of the Force. His connection to the galaxy was not limited by physical form. Through his understanding of the Force as a living, breathing entity, Qui Gon was able to maintain his presence in the galaxy, subtly nudging those he had mentored toward their destinies. His actions from beyond death were not dictated by fate or prophecy alone, but by the living, dynamic choices of the individuals involved. Qui Gon's influence on Anakin Skywalker is perhaps the clearest demonstration of the power of the living Force in action. Despite the darkness that clouded Anakin's journey, it was Qui Gon's teachings, his unwavering belief in Anakin's potential, that ultimately led to Anakin's redemption. The Jedi Council, who had seen Anakin as a tool of prophecy and a potential threat, had failed to see the humanity within him. It was Qui Gon, with his open embrace of the Force's unpredictability, who understood that Anakin's destiny could only be fulfilled by Anakin's own choices. Qui Gon believed in the balance that Anakin could bring to the Force, and this belief did not die with him. Even in death, Qui Gon's presence remained a guiding force in Anakin's life, ultimately leading him to the decision to destroy the Emperor and restore balance to the Force. Qui Gon's belief in the living nature of the Force allowed him to understand that the galaxy's future was not predetermined. He saw the Force not as a force of fate, but as a force of possibility, a living entity that allowed beings to make their own choices, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. This philosophy is what allowed Qui Gon to continue to guide others after his death. He did not dictate the future, but he did show those who were open to the Force how to walk their own paths, free from the limitations of rigid doctrine or unyielding fate. Through his transcendence, Qui Gon Jinn became not only a guide for those who came after him, but a symbol of the Force's true potential. His death did not mark the end of his journey, but the beginning of a new phase of existence, where he became part of the Force's eternal flow, subtly guiding the galaxy's events from beyond the veil. He demonstrated that the Force was not a static, impersonal energy field, but a living, dynamic force that responded to the actions and choices of the living. Qui Gon's fate after death was the embodiment of this philosophy, an ongoing presence in the Force, continuing to guide the galaxy toward balance, harmony, and redemption. The legacy of Qui Gon Jinn's transcendence was far-reaching. It reshaped the Jedi understanding of the Force, offering them a new perspective that allowed for the inclusion of both the living and cosmic forces in their philosophy. His teachings provided a foundation for a more dynamic, flexible approach to the Force, one that acknowledged the importance of free will, personal choice, and the living, ever-changing nature of the universe. Qui Gon's fate after death was not just the continuation of a Jedi Master's journey, it was the transformation of the Jedi Order's very understanding of the Force and its role in the galaxy. Ultimately, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death serves as a profound reminder that death is not an end, but a continuation of the eternal flow of the Force. His transcendence shows that even after physical death, one's connection to the Force remains intact, allowing for guidance, wisdom, and transformation to persist across time and space. Through his connection to the living Force, Qui Gon was able to guide those who came after him, shaping the destinies of individuals and ultimately ensuring that the Force's balance would be restored. His legacy, as a teacher, guide, and spiritual force, continues to influence the galaxy long after his physical form has passed away. Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death, much like his life, is a paradox that transcends traditional Jedi teachings, revealing the Force as a fluid, dynamic entity that is deeply influenced by the choices of individuals. The Jedi Order's long-standing doctrines emphasize the importance of detachment, control, and the avoidance of emotion, believing that these were the keys to maintaining peace and balance in the galaxy. However, Qui-Gon's understanding of the Force challenged these conventions, as he saw the Force not as something to be controlled, but as something to be lived with and trusted. His legacy, particularly after his death, reveals the true meaning of balance within the Force, not as an absence of conflict, but as a harmony between opposing forces. The concept of balance within the Force has been a central theme in Star Wars, and it is often interpreted as the ultimate resolution between the light and dark sides. While the Jedi believed that the light side must always be preserved and that the dark side must be eradicated, Qui-Gon recognized that true balance could not be achieved by suppressing the dark. The dark side, like the light, was an integral part of the Force's dynamic, and its role should not be feared or suppressed, but understood. He embraced the idea that the Force is a living, breathing energy that is constantly in flux, and that both the light and dark sides are necessary to maintain the equilibrium of the galaxy. This understanding allowed Qui-Gon to navigate his own spiritual journey, leading to his transcendence after death, where he continued to guide the galaxy through subtle influences that resonated through the Force. Qui-Gon's fate after death is deeply intertwined with the destiny of Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One. The prophecy that foretold Anakin's role in bringing balance to the Force was one of the most important elements of the galaxy's history. However, the Jedi Council was skeptical of the prophecy and saw Anakin as both a threat and a necessary savior. In contrast, Qui-Gon believed in Anakin's potential to bring balance, but his faith was rooted in the idea that Anakin's journey was one of personal choice, not predetermination. Qui-Gon understood that Anakin's path would not be defined solely by the Force or the prophecy, but by his own decisions, influenced by his emotions, attachments, and fears. Anakin's fall to the dark side, and the eventual destruction of the Sith, was the culmination of the struggle between light and dark within the galaxy. However, it was also a moment of profound personal choice for Anakin, who ultimately chose to redeem himself and destroy the Emperor. This decision was not simply the fulfillment of the prophecy, but the result of the free will that Qui-Gon had always championed. Even as Anakin succumbed to his fear, anger, and pain, Qui-Gon's teachings continued to guide him from beyond the veil, reminding him of the potential for redemption and the possibility of returning to the light. It was Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin that allowed him to make the final redemptive choice to bring balance to the Force, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. Qui-Gon's influence on Anakin Skywalker was not simply the result of a Jedi Master's mentorship, but the embodiment of the living, dynamic nature of the Force itself. While the Jedi had often viewed the Force as a set of rules to follow and a power to control, Qui-Gon saw it as a living entity that responded to the intentions and choices of individuals. His transcendence after death allowed him to remain a force for change, influencing not just Anakin but also Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, and others who would carry the legacy of the Jedi forward. Qui-Gon's teachings were not just about understanding the Force's power, but about embracing its unpredictability and allowing it to guide one's path. The legacy of Qui Gon Jinn's transcendence after death is not just one of spiritual guidance, but of transformation. Through his understanding of the Force as a living energy, he redefined the role of the Jedi and the true meaning of balance. He rejected the rigid doctrines of the Jedi Council and embraced the idea that true wisdom comes from living in harmony with the Force, not trying to control it. His teachings helped shape the future of the Jedi, offering a more flexible, dynamic approach to understanding the Force, one that embraced both the light and dark sides as necessary components of the cosmic balance. As the galaxy moved beyond the age of the Empire, the Jedi Order began to rebuild, and Qui-Gon's influence continued to resonate through the actions of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Luke. The Jedi who survived the fall of the Sith realized that the galaxy's understanding of the Force had to evolve. The lessons learned from Qui-Gon, particularly his belief in the living Force, became the foundation for this new understanding. The Jedi Order would no longer view the Force as a tool to be controlled, but as a living, breathing entity that connected all things and all beings. This new understanding of the Force allowed the Jedi to embrace their role not as controllers of the galaxy's fate, but as guides who could help individuals find their own path within the greater flow of the universe. Qui-Gon's legacy is also a testament to the power of choice and free will within the Force. While the Jedi had long believed in fate and destiny, Qui-Gon understood that the galaxy's future was shaped by the choices of individuals. He believed that balance could only be achieved through conscious decisions, not through predestination. This philosophy became the cornerstone of his influence on Anakin Skywalker, and it is through Anakin's redemption that Qui-Gon's teachings were ultimately fulfilled. Anakin's choice to destroy the Emperor and restore balance to the Force was not the result of fate, but of free will, of the choice to embrace the light, despite the darkness that had consumed him for so long. This choice, guided by Qui-Gon's influence, marked the ultimate fulfillment of the prophecy, not as a predetermined event, but as the result of Anakin's personal decision to shape his own destiny. In the end, Qui-Gon Jinn's fate after death was a testament to the living, evolving nature of the Force. His transcendence allowed him to continue to influence the galaxy, shaping the future of the Jedi and the balance of the Force itself. His legacy was not one of strict control or rigid doctrine, but of wisdom, understanding, and the ability to embrace the Force in its most dynamic and unpredictable form. Qui-Gon's death, rather than being an end, marked the beginning of his true role as a spiritual guide and teacher, a presence within the Force that would continue to influence the galaxy for generations to come. The ultimate mystery of Qui-Gon Jinn's fate after death lies not in the recognition of his influence, but in the fundamental question of the nature of the Force itself. Qui-Gon's transcendence from the physical realm challenges the very foundation of Jedi teachings, forcing the galaxy to confront the idea that the Force is not just a cosmic power that can be understood through study and discipline, but a living, ever-present entity that adapts and evolves alongside those who connect with it. His journey after death, unlike that of any other Jedi Master, reveals the Force's most profound truths that were never fully understood by the Jedi Council and which would not be revealed in their entirety until long after the fall of the Sith. For centuries, the Jedi Order had placed great emphasis on control, discipline, and emotional detachment, seeing these qualities as the only means by which one could truly understand the Force. Qui-Gon, however, rejected these ideals. arguing that true understanding came not through suppression of emotions, but through embracing the flow of the living force in the present moment. His belief in the Force as a dynamic, living entity set him apart from the other Jedi and gave him a unique connection to the energy that binds the universe together. This connection would enable him, in death, to continue his role as a guide and teacher for those who followed him, revealing that the Force itself was far more fluid and expansive than the Jedi had realized. Qui Gon's transcendence is not just a spiritual or metaphysical journey. It is a testament to the potential of all beings to influence the Force, even beyond the confines of life and death. The Jedi had always believed that death was a final release into the Force, but Qui Gon showed that death is not the end, but the next step in a continuous journey. By embracing the Force as a living, breathing energy, Qui Gon was able to break through the traditional boundaries that constrained most Jedi. His survival beyond death, not as a passive Force ghost, but as an active presence in the galaxy's spiritual fabric, reveals the deeper, more mysterious aspects of the Force, those aspects that the Jedi had yet to fully understand. This understanding of the Force also sheds light on Qui Gon's unique role in the story of Anakin Skywalker. The Jedi Council had always seen Anakin as a product of prophecy, a being who was destined to bring balance to the Force. However, the Jedi did not understand the nature of that balance. They saw the Force in rigid terms, light and dark, good and evil, without understanding that true balance comes from the integration of both forces. Qui Gon, in contrast, recognized that balance in the Force could only come from the acceptance and understanding of both the light and the dark. His faith in Anakin was not a blind belief in the prophecy, but a deep understanding of Anakin's potential to bring about this balance through his own choices. Qui Gon's influence, even after his death, was a guiding force in Anakin's journey. It was Qui Gon who first believed in Anakin's potential, and it was Qui Gon's teachings that continued to resonate with Anakin, even as he fell to the dark side. Anakin's ultimate redemption was not simply the result of Luke Skywalker's faith in him, but of Qui Gon's continued guidance from beyond the grave. It was through Qui Gon's influence that Anakin was able to make the final choice to destroy the Emperor and restore balance to the Force, fulfilling the prophecy and his role as the Chosen One. The story of Qui Gon's fate after death is also a profound commentary on the nature of the Force as a living entity. The Jedi had long believed that the Force was an energy field that could be understood through discipline, study, and control. However, Qui Gon's transcendence reveals that the Force is not an entity to be controlled. It is an entity that grows, evolves, and interacts with those who seek to understand it. Qui Gon's understanding of the Force was rooted in a deep spiritual awareness, one that allowed him to break free from the limitations of the Jedi teachings and connect with the Force on a more intimate level. In doing so, he was able to transcend death and continue to influence the galaxy long after his physical form had passed. The Jedi Order's understanding of the Force was rooted in the belief that it could be compartmentalized: light and dark, good and evil. Qui Gon, however, saw the Force as something far more complex. His teachings, which emphasized the importance of the living Force, helped him understand that the Force was not a binary system, but a fluid, interconnected web of energies that could not be divided so simply. It was this understanding that allowed him to transcend death and become an active part of the Force itself, guiding those who needed it most. Qui Gon's transcendence also marked a shift in the Jedi Order's understanding of the afterlife. The Jedi had always viewed death as a peaceful return to the Force, where one's consciousness would merge with the cosmic energy field and become one with the universe. But Qui Gon's fate showed that death did not necessarily mean dissolution. He became a living part of the Force, continuing his journey, guiding others, and influencing the galaxy's destiny from beyond the physical realm. This understanding of death as a continuation of one's existence, rather than a final end, became a key aspect of the Jedi's evolving philosophy. Through Qui Gon's teachings, the Jedi learned that balance in the Force could not be achieved through strict control or suppression of the dark side, but through an acceptance of the totality of the Force. This understanding would be the foundation for the Jedi Order's rebirth after the fall of the Sith. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and the surviving Jedi would come to realize that the balance they sought could only be found through a deeper connection to the Force, one that embraced both the living and the cosmic aspects of the energy that bound the galaxy together. Qui Gon's transcendence, therefore, became a model for the future of the Jedi. His belief in the living, evolving nature of the Force allowed him to guide not just those who were alive, but those who would come after him. His teachings on balance, on embracing the Force in all its complexity, would become the cornerstone of a new era for the Jedi, one that was grounded in a deeper understanding of the Force as a living, breathing entity. His fate after death was not the end of his story, but the beginning of a new chapter, where his influence would continue to shape the galaxy's destiny. In the end, Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death serves as a profound reminder of the nature of the Force and the role of individuals within it. His transcendence showed that the Force is not something that can be controlled or compartmentalized, but something that is constantly evolving, always flowing, and always connected to those who seek its wisdom. Qui Gon's influence, even in death, continues to guide the galaxy toward balance and harmony. Through his teachings and his transcendence, Qui Gon redefined the Jedi understanding of the Force and left a lasting legacy that continues to shape the galaxy long after his physical death. Qui Gon Jinn's transcendence after death unveils a profound, timeless truth about the Force. His fate is a symbol of the ongoing, interconnected nature of all beings within the galaxy, reinforcing the idea that death is not an end, but a continuation of one's journey through the Force. Qui Gon's unique connection to the living Force, his ability to influence the galaxy after his death, and his role as a spiritual guide reveal the infinite potential of the Force and demonstrate how it transcends physical boundaries, existing beyond time and space. His influence after death serves as a powerful testament to the Force's ability to sustain, transform, and guide, no matter where one stands in the cycle of life and death. The key to understanding Qui Gon's fate after death lies in his profound bond with the living Force. Unlike many Jedi, who focused on understanding the Force in a purely intellectual manner, viewing it as a tool to achieve control over their surroundings, Qui Gon connected with the Force as something far more personal. He lived in tune with the immediate present, embracing the Force not just as a cosmic energy, but as a living, breathing presence that was constantly in motion, constantly evolving. This awareness allowed him to see beyond the traditional teachings of the Jedi Order, recognizing that true mastery of the Force required embracing its flow, not attempting to control it. When Qui Gon died, his mastery of the Force did not dissipate. Rather, it allowed him to transcend the physical plane and continue his journey within the Force itself. He became an eternal part of the galaxy's spiritual fabric, no longer limited by time or physical constraints. The traditional understanding of death within the Jedi Order, an eventual dissolution into the Force, where one's consciousness would simply fade into the greater energy field, was not enough for Qui Gon. He was not absorbed by the Force. He became an active part of it, remaining a guiding presence for those who sought it. Qui Gon's influence after death, while not overt or grandiose, is perhaps most evident in the pivotal moments of Anakin Skywalker's journey. Anakin's role in the galaxy, as the chosen one destined to bring balance to the Force, was fraught with trials, temptation, and immense inner conflict. Even as Anakin fell to the dark side, consumed by fear, anger, and the tragic loss of those he loved, Qui-Gon's belief in him remained. Though he had passed on from the physical world, Qui-Gon's guidance continued to resonate through the Force, a quiet reminder of the potential for redemption. It was Qui-Gon's teachings on the living Force, his understanding that true balance could only be achieved through personal choice and acceptance of the present moment, that played a critical role in Anakin's eventual redemption. Qui-Gon, even from beyond the grave, ensured that Anakin would have the strength to choose his path. His belief that balance in the Force could only be achieved through both light and dark made him the only Jedi who truly understood Anakin's potential. It was Qui-Gon's legacy that allowed Anakin to overcome the darkness that had consumed him and to make the ultimate choice to destroy the Emperor, thereby restoring balance to the Force. The quiet influence of Qui-Gon on Anakin is just one example of how his transcendence after death reshaped the galaxy. His ability to maintain his connection to the Force allowed him to become a spiritual force, guiding not just Anakin, but also Obi-Wan Kenobi and others who sought the wisdom of the Force. Obi-Wan, who had struggled with doubt, guilt, and the weight of his own failures after Anakin's fall, found solace in Qui-Gon's teachings during his darkest moments. Qui-Gon's guidance helped Obi-Wan to see that the choices made by the Jedi were just as important as the larger cosmic events that shaped the galaxy. Through Qui-Gon's influence, Obi-Wan was able to understand that balance in the Force was not something to be imposed, but something to be embraced. Qui-Gon's teachings also helped to reshape the Jedi Order's understanding of the Force in the aftermath of the Sith's fall. Obi-Wan, Yoda, and the surviving Jedi would rebuild the Order based on Qui-Gon's vision of the Force as a dynamic, living entity that existed beyond the boundaries of the physical realm. They realized that the Force was not just a tool to be used by Jedi to maintain peace, but a living energy that could guide all beings in their path. The Jedi Order would begin to embrace the idea that death was not an end, but a continuation of the journey through the Force, where the Jedi could remain connected to the galaxy and guide future generations. Qui-Gon's transcendence allowed him to continue his influence through the wisdom he imparted to the Jedi and to those who sought to understand the deeper mysteries of the Force. The continuing presence of Qui-Gon in the galaxy also reflected the evolution of the Jedi's philosophy. The Jedi, traditionally concerned with the regulation of emotions and control over the Force, would shift towards a more holistic approach. This approach would acknowledge the unpredictable nature of life, the necessity of both the light and dark sides, and the importance of personal choice in shaping destiny. Qui-Gon's teachings about balance and trust in the Force would become the foundation for the Jedi's future philosophy. His fate after death revealed that the Force was not something to be governed, but something to be felt, embraced, and understood. It was not a force of fate, but a living entity that responded to the will of individuals and the collective flow of all things. Qui-Gon's role as a guide to the galaxy did not end with the destruction of the Sith. His transcendence allowed him to influence events beyond the scope of the Jedi Order, reaching the hearts of those who were attuned to the Force and ready to accept its guidance. Qui-Gon's wisdom, his belief in the possibility of transformation, his faith in the capacity for redemption, and his embrace of both the light and the dark would continue to shape the galaxy's destiny. Through his influence, Qui Gon proved that the Force was not a static entity, but a living, breathing force that could transform and heal even after death. The essence of Qui Gon Jinn's transcendence lies in his ability to demonstrate the true nature of the Force. It is not a tool, nor a weapon, but a living energy that connects all things and all beings across the galaxy. His fate after death was not about power or control, but about service. The service of guiding the living through their journeys, helping them to navigate the challenges they faced, and leading them toward their own destinies. Qui Gon's legacy, shaped by his death and transcendence, would influence the galaxy for generations to come, reminding all who would listen that the Force is not something to fear or control, but something to live with, to embrace, and to understand in its fullest and most dynamic form. Qui Gon Jinn's fate after death is a profound narrative that reveals the deepest mysteries of the Force and the galaxy itself. His transcendence is not merely a tale of spiritual survival, it is a testament to the living, dynamic nature of the Force, one that exists beyond the boundaries of time, space, and death. Through his unique understanding of the Force as a living entity, Qui Gon broke free from the constraints of Jedi tradition, challenging the rigid doctrines of the Jedi Order. His belief in the living Force, embracing the present moment, trusting in the flow of energy, and acknowledging the balance between light and dark, became the cornerstone of his legacy, both in life and after death. After his death, Qui Gon's influence did not end, it merely evolved. He transcended into a spiritual guide, an active force within the Force itself, continuing to shape the destinies of those he had mentored and others who sought his wisdom. His continued presence was felt most profoundly by Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, whom Qui Gon had always believed in despite the doubts of others. Qui Gon's belief in Anakin's potential for redemption and his unwavering faith in the possibility of balance in the Force ultimately guided Anakin to make the final choice that would bring balance to the galaxy. The impact of Qui Gon's teachings extended beyond Anakin's redemption. His influence helped reshape the Jedi Order's understanding of the Force, shifting it away from rigid control to a more holistic, living relationship with the Force. The Jedi would come to embrace the idea that balance was not something imposed, but something understood, an understanding that Qui Gon had seen in the galaxy all along. His teachings on the importance of choice, free will, and the acceptance of both the light and dark sides of the Force became foundational to the Jedi's future approach to peace and balance. Qui Gon's fate after death also provided a deeper insight into the true nature of the Force. It revealed that the Force is not a binary system of light and dark, but a living, breathing energy that thrives on the interplay between all of its aspects. His transcendence showed that death is not an end, but a continuation, a transition into a deeper connection with the Force that allows one to guide, shape, and influence the galaxy. In embracing this truth, Qui Gon Jinn became not only a Jedi Master, but a symbol of eternal wisdom and balance, one whose legacy would endure, shaping the future of the galaxy long after his physical form had passed away. In the end, Qui Gon's transcendence after death represents the infinite possibilities of the Force and the never-ending journey of self-discovery and spiritual evolution. His fate is a reminder that the Force is not a static entity to be controlled, but a living presence that responds to the intentions of those who seek to understand it. His legacy lives on as a beacon of wisdom, showing that true balance is achieved not through control, but through acceptance, understanding, and the ever-present choice to align with the living, flowing energy of the Force. Qui Gon Jinn's journey, both in life and after death, is an eternal testament to the power of transformation, transforming not only the galaxy, but the very way the Jedi, and all Force-sensitive beings, understand their connection to the universe. Through his transcendence, he taught that death is merely the beginning of a new chapter, a new understanding, and a new role in the grand cosmic flow. The galaxy's path toward balance and peace would forever be shaped by Qui Gon Jinn's legacy, a legacy that transcended death itself.